So, how to tell if you are gaining muscle? 8 different ways, ranging from most accurate to least accurate. The first way is to die. Then we can cut you open and divide up the muscle and the fat and the pancreas and the liver, the different areas of where the muscle was and where the fat was. We can divide it into different piles, and we can actually see to the gram if you have more muscle than the last time we did this. Now, you might not be making any gains in the future, but it's a really good way to check extremely accurately. Now, if you're not willing to do that, slacker, you can get an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. I hope I got that one right. I'll check. I'll delete this if it's not right. Let's put it that way. And you can actually check your muscle growth over time. Now, this is quite accurate. It might not be as accurate as number 1, but it's a little bit more convenient and a little bit more repeatable as well. However, it's a little bit on the expensive side, and it's probably not worth doing more than a few times per year at the very most. You could also get a DEXA scan. However, I have seen so many DEXA scans that are clearly wrong. In-body as well. I find that in-body scans, they underestimate body fat by around 3 to 5% in almost every single case. I'll get an in-body scan saying someone is like 7% body fat, and they'll be like 12-ish. That's happened a lot of different times. Next, you can use a measuring tape to actually physically measure the area that you want to develop. So, for example, for an arm, I'm not going to do these Athlete X style.
Probably the most significant thing I've ever done for building my biceps was to do this from an early age. Well, you're going to start doing it now over the course of the next 22 days.
I'm going to do it legit for y'all. You can see my arms are back to right at almost 17. Looks like 16 3/4. Now, if your arm is getting bigger, it's almost certainly from muscle growth. However, there is a fat component, okay? There is, if your arm is completely shredded, that might be more muscle at a given measurement compared to someone who is fat. There are morbidly obese people who have 20-inch arms. It's not muscle, it's almost entirely fat. So it's important to keep in mind that a measurement is not only muscle. And when you get shredded, you will almost certainly lose inches even if you maintain all of your muscle. And this is good because it is a direct measure of what you actually want to progress on. If you want bigger arms, just measure how big your arms are. I recommend measuring neck, shoulders around, the entire torso, chest under the armpits, waist, mostly to check for fat gain, not muscular gain. If your waist is getting bigger, it's not oblique gains, most likely, okay? It's probably fat. I would also measure upper arms, forearms, quads around the thigh, the biggest part of the thigh, and then calves as well. Plus, you can measure your wrist as well as your ankle, but those won't change very much because you're not going to be making any kind of gains around your wrist or ankles because it's mostly just bone and joint tissue.
Shit! I came in this fucking room and everything went fucking bad. Fuck this shit, man.
Next, how your clothes fit. Now, if your shirt is feeling tighter across the front and you've been doing, a lot of bench pressing, a lot of dips, a lot of flies, you're probably getting a bigger chest. Same thing if it's around the shoulders, you've been doing a lot of pressing and laterals and stuff like that and eating a good amount of food and lean bulking, probably muscular growth, okay? I've had times where I actually exploded my pants. Yes, I was doing a lot of squatting. My pants were gradually getting tighter and tighter. I squatted down one day when I was teaching English here in China, and my pants exploded. And I spent the rest of the lesson with my knees together, teaching behind the desk. Usually I walk up and down the rows. Not that day, not even once, bro. And I think the kids sort of were like, why isn't the teacher moving around today? It's because my pants exploded. Okay, kids, you happy? Then I walked home from class like a fucking penguin. And yeah, this might happen if you start squatting a lot, especially if you are very responsive to her squats. I was doing small up. I was squatting 4 times per week for pretty high volume, pretty high intensity. I gained 4 or 5 kilos in like 3 weeks. My legs blew the fuck up, and then my pants did as well. And I've had times where I exploded shirts as well, like under the lat. Actually, you can see these ones ripped around the trap. And this is just what happens when you get bigger. Your clothes don't get bigger with you, and so they break. On the other hand, if your shirt is getting tighter around the belly or your jeans are getting tighter around the waistline, that's probably not muscle growth. I actually heard a story by Christian Thibodeau like 5 or 6 years around when I started lifting about how he was lean bulking. Well, actually not lean bulking. He was dirty bulking when he was in high school or maybe in college. And his mom kept taking out the waist on his pants. So he went from like a 30-inch waist to a 40-inch waist or something ridiculous and he gained like 40 or 50 or 60 pounds, a lot of it being fat. But he just said to himself, well, my waistline is the same because my pants fit the same, but he didn't realize his mom was actually increasing the waistline of his pants. So definitely be careful when it comes to how your clothes fit. Next, you can look at pictures. You can say, okay, well, 3 years ago I looked like this. Videos are also okay. But this can be a little bit tricky because lighting can be different, angles can be different. Unless you're against like a white wall in the same exact position, not very accurate in a lot of cases. Plus, body fat percentage does have an impact. If you go from 12% body fat down to 8% body fat, even with the same amount of muscle, you lost just pure fat, which is very good going, you'll probably look bigger at 8% if you have your shirt off. But when you have your shirt on, you'll look bigger at 12%. So it really does depend on the lighting, the angles. Some people use social media to their advantage. They always have the best possible lighting and angles with their shirt off. You know who I'm talking about, right?
What's the guys?
So just because you look bigger, the pump also has an effect, doesn't mean you actually are bigger. So I would say measurements is going to be a better way to actually tell because the tape measure doesn't lie. Next, your level of strength. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky because obviously it's not a direct measure of growth. It's sort of like a byproduct of growth or a precursor to growth, however you want to look at it. You should probably find a few lifts per body part, not fart, stupid beard, that correlate very strongly to that body part. So for example, on biceps, I find that my incline dumbbell curl correlates very, very strongly with my growth, especially in the sort of 6 to 8 rep range. Singles, that could be central nervous system, that could be leverages, could be skill. You just practiced that particular lift and got better at it. And with super high reps, it could just be endurance. It's not the actual muscle getting better or bigger. It's just you've gotten your work capacity up. This is especially true with squats, deadlifts, lunges, that kind of thing. If your 20 rep max on squats goes up, that might not be your quads getting bigger. It might be your heart getting stronger, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not really what we're looking to track. It also depends on how you do a movement. For example, if you squat like a power lifter for a 1 rep max, you're barely going to parallel, you're only getting 2 white lights, you're doing more of a good morning style, wider stance, you're bouncing out of the bottom position, you're using as much momentum and oomph as possible. That is going to be very different than going deep, using a narrower stance, controlling the tempo, using a slight pause, focusing on the quads, and doing a 10 rep max. That latter one, is going to be extremely correlated with quad size. The other one isn't really going to be a great predictor. So how you do a movement is very, very important. You also have to take into account your overall volume and consistency and progression. What you do for one set once doesn't matter that much. What can you do on multiple sets, multiple times per week, multiple times per year? That consistency is going to be just as important as, hey man, what's your max reps PR? Because that could be old. And what you did 5 months ago might have very little relevance to what you can do now. And ultimately, it's just about what you can do now that is going to be a predictor of what you look like now. I did a video called Find Your Big 10 a while ago, probably a year or more ago. Still relevant, still really, really good. And this can help you find those movements that are going to actually get you muscular growth. Some movements might not help very much, but these definitely will. So definitely check that out. Finally, you can check your weight. If the scale is going up, muscle growth is more likely. However, Lots of people gain weight and don't gain an ounce of muscle. In fact, you can gain fat and lose muscle at the same time. Message me for coaching, I'll tell you how. Conversely, what more people are typically after, you can gain muscle while losing body fat. You can recomp, you can maintain, you can maintain, you can gain small amounts of muscle in a cut. All of those are possible. So just because the scale isn't going up doesn't mean you're not making muscular gains. And also just because the scale is going up doesn't mean you are. However, it is one factor. You can also check your body fat percentage at a given weight. If a few years ago, let's say you weighed 85 kilos at a certain body fat percentage, and now you weigh 88 kilos and you look to be about the same body fat percentage, you probably gained muscle. Unless it was like pancreas gains or something, or that liver growth, it was almost certainly muscle. Lean body mass and muscle are going to be very, very correlated. Yes, there's water fluctuations, but in the long term, if you gain 3 kilos and you look to be about the same body fat percentage, it's probably muscle, especially if you're ticking a lot of these other boxes. So hopefully this gives you some ways to actually check to see if you're getting muscle. Keep in mind, especially naturally, muscle growth takes time. You're not going to be gaining a kilo of muscle per month past the first year, and even then, a kilo of muscle per month is very, very good going. I might gain 1 to 2 kilos of muscle per year if I do things very, very well. And therefore, it's important to actually track your progress, and using multiple methods is going to give you a better picture of what is actually going on. Let's say your shirts are getting tighter across your chest, your bench press, 8 or 10 rep max or something is going up on a pretty regular basis week by week. You're gaining weight very, very gradually. Other people are saying, hey man, you're looking swole, that kind of thing. You look bigger. Your chest actually physically looks thicker and denser. The MRI says you're gaining muscle. The DEXA says you're gaining muscle.
Yeah, well, you're looking all sorts of good.
When the necromancer cuts you up, it says, he says, hey man, he says to your ghost, hey, good job, bro. You gained muscle, just not in the future anymore. That kind of thing. You are almost certainly gaining muscle. All right, that is all for this video, bros and broettes, and I will see all y'all. Oh, like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Just start clicking buttons, and I will see all y'all in the next video. Peace.
Wild card, bitches! Yeah!
What? Oh, God! Oh, my God!